2 in 5 Social Security recipients now work while collecting benefits.
Yeah, this is not a good stat, by the way. Like usually 65, think about that. That's right around the corner, man, for some of us. And I'll tell you what, back then, the people who were 65 were old. And the thing is, it's largely a fixed number based on the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. So, people like my mom rely on this, this money. But and it's going up at a CPI number, but it sure feels like things are harder.
Yeah, I mean, things were changing, right? So basically right now you're seeing 40% of beneficiaries combine work with benefits for at least some time period. And this is increasingly common because of cost of living, longer life expectancy, and there is a health desire to stay active for some people as well.
And the irony is, isn't there a restriction on you actually working and making money while you're drawing Social Security?
There is until a certain point. Once you've reached full retirement age, there's not. But if you're trying to take it early, then yeah.
Yeah. So, but to your point, the whole point of Social Security, literally the word security, it's not so much.
Yeah, so I want to go back to all the way to the 80s. Ken loves when I go back on my data, but it is
that's
interesting.
That's when you were born.
It is interesting because 65-year-olds then, only 10 to 12% were working while taking Social Security. So at ages 65 and up, there's only 10 to 12% of people working. And retirement was largely like a hard stop for most people. But you have to think back in those days, they had pensions, right? So pensions were kind of your additional payment to your Social Security benefit.
And we had real retirement accounts that actually helped too. Right?
Yeah.
Pensions, retirement accounts, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. And you saw that kind of go up to 19 to 22% all the way until 2020.
That's when Wall Street started reaching in your pocket. Wall Street said, okay, Main Street, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to manage it for them because they don't know how. So I'm going to do that for them. And that was the rise of the financial planner and the wealth manager. And now look at where we are.
Yeah. And so basically, even till 2020, though, you had people that, you only had 19 to 22% of people that were working while taking benefits. So I think this major push came with what you just said, plus inflation, right? Yeah. I think inflation pushed people over the edge as far as needing to work on top of their Social Security.
Guys, listen, I can't remember my mom. I think my mom's retired for quite a while, but she gets like $1,500 a month, right? And it goes up by $30 or something,
Yeah.
It just doesn't work, right? And then you just compound that year over year over year. It's horrible. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I know you guys probably have a tremendous amount of stories around this because it just isn't working. And so what's happening is there's some people that can't work, like my mom, as you know, cannot work right now, right? And there's a lot of people that just can't. But the ones that can are just to supplement their income.
Yeah, especially, what's good about my parents and about your mom is they did own their home. So even though they only get that small stipend, it still helps because they don't have a rent payment, to add on top of that.
That's a heck of a point. If my mom had to pay rent, she'd be in big trouble. In fact, as you know, we threw a renter in there that actually pays her. And so she gets to do whatever she wants. So ironically, my mom was a hairdresser. Not a real estate investor. They bought that home for $10,700. It's worth over $700 today, but it's got a renter in there that's kicking off cash. And your parents, similar situation, even though they live in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with both my parents' Social Security, it's how they afford to live. My dad was able to cut back on his work. He is still working very part-time, but it is more because he wants to than because he has to, because their house is paid off and they both have a check coming in. It is enough for them to live on.
That's actually a good point. That's what the data doesn't necessarily show. Like your dad is very active. I drove up the road the other day and he's out there hoofing it.
He loves to walk.
He does. By the way, this is awesome. He's extremely active and he wants to stay connected. So he's working on his own terms, where he wants, making what he wants, and he'll shut it down when he wants to shut it down. But it has really very little to do with the financial part.
Yeah, I think that it's good for people to keep working to an extent because, to your point, as long as they're liking what they do and it's fun. I know a lot of retired people that work very part-time just to keep their mind going. But at the same time, I do think that we have a problem brewing because a lot of these boomers that are at retirement age, they own homes more than any other demographic. So if you start going down the list and you think, what if people don't own homes? How are they going to afford to retire with a rent payment? That's going to be a lot more complicated.
But that's it. And you guys know we're heading that way. So I think in the short term, we're not going to see, the bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, as you guys know, we're at a low point. I think we're at 35%. Home ownership or renters, and 65% home ownership, and that seems to be going the opposite way. So what we really are going to be seeing here with low wage growth, high inflation, and if these interest rates persist, we're going to see more people that have to stay in that renter lane, and the home ownership could potentially go down, and that has decade issues.
Well, and in France, they just upped the retirement age to 70. And I think that that's something that we can anticipate here is, them kicking the retirement age down the road because that saves them a lot of money.
I wonder what the real reason was. I bet it's an economic issue.
It is an economic issue.
For the government.
Yes, correct. It's about how much they have to spend on retirement. And if people work an additional 5 years, it's easier for them to budget, right?
And the real issue is that they mismanage those funds. Because they do take the money from the people. That's what Social Security is. It comes out of our checks, right? So where'd it go and how was it managed and were they prudent with it? And no, so I'm going to add 5 years, right?
Well, but I think that's why you can't just rely on the system to retire, which I think a lot of people do. They rely on their 401k and Social Security to retire. And what I think is interesting is Trump, it's never going to pass, but he's proposing that we do something like Australia does, which is a, forced personal retirement account where they take out 11% of the wages the employer has to from the employee and makes them invest it, starting right when they start working. And because of that, their financial retirement system's in a much better situation.
It's called a superannuation.
Yeah.
I've been over there and I've actually talked to a lot of people. And what the interesting cool about that is, the cool thing is that money. They actually look at it like it's theirs. Oh, surprise, surprise. We're going to make you do this, and we're going to make the employer match it. Okay, that's one thing. But then, like, if it's mine, it sits in an account. I can actually invest it into rental housing. I can do whatever I want. Here in the U.S., no. They're like, we want that money. We have to manage it for you.
Oh, and so in Australia, they let them manage it on their own?
So it's basically self-directed over there. Yeah. So, by the way, the rules around retirement funds is all over the place. And the U.S. is horrible because they basically don't let you, like, how goofy is this? If I have a retirement account, I can't buy my mom a house because it's a related party. How ridiculous is that? We should actually lobby and try to change that. It's your money. But you know why? Because Franklin Templeton is going to do a better job, or Vanguard, or Schwab, or that's the whole point, guys. They keep you poor, keep them managing your money for you, and then they restrict the heck out of it, and then they even penalize you if you take it out.
Well, what I thought was interesting, though, in Australia is you cannot take it out. Like, there's very few reasons why you can take it out. So it's basically, and it's mandatory. Like, you don't even deposit it. It just comes straight out of your check. Your employer takes it out, and you're not allowed to do anything with it. And we're having a problem in the U.S. because people are getting squeezed, so they're not able to afford to put money in 401ks, and they're not afford to put any money. So they're going to be solely relying on Social Security, and it's not enough money to solely rely on. I mean, like imagine you getting a $1,500 check every month, and you have rent, and you have groceries, and you have medical bill. I mean, you might be able to squeeze by with a roommate, maybe, but you're going to have no additional money for anything beyond food and rent.
Yeah.
Like a car, no. Gas, no. Insurance, no. Like, you're just not going to be money. So it's not a great system. And I understand why Trump wants to change it, but it's also to try to change it would be so difficult. There'd be so much resistance in telling people we're taking 10% of your check and investing it. So sorry. And you don't get that money.
Right. This is why financial education is so important, guys. This is why we do this channel. Seriously, like taking control of your financial future is so important. Like I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm like, how you doing? They're getting ready to retire. I'm fine. My wealth manager says I'm good. I'm like, well, okay. So what are you invested in? Don't know. Literally don't know. Like because they make it complicated too. Like the XYZ worldwide hedge produced fund. Like, it's got some big brand on it. And you don't even have a clue what's inside of it, what fees are being taken or anything like that. And I'll tell you, Kiyosaki wrote this great book. It's been a while now, but it's called Who Stole My Pension with Ted Siddell. And I'll tell you, because he's a whistleblower for people that put their money in a pension. Well, the issue is as you turn your money over people, not everyone's bad, by the way, but as you do, it's a huge risk if you don't know what to ask them and don't know how to manage it. Nothing wrong with having somebody else managing your money at all, but you need to have the questions, and you need to be able to know what to ask and why it's and in where it is and what the fees are and all that kind of stuff. It's super important, and that's what's actually starting to flush out right now. Is these people. And Social Security is another example, by the way, because the government does not have the amount of money that people have put up for Social Security. You know that. They said they're supposed to run dry in 2030. Now it won't, because they're going to fund it.
But, it's important, that's why, as much as people say, oh, I don't need to buy a home. Oh, people don't need to own a home. Okay, but if you're not going to own a home, you need to be investing into things that are going to pay you, because if you're going to have this rental burden when you retire, you have to understand you're going to have that, and it's going to move with inflation. And rental property is actually the most common non-pension retirement income globally.
Yeah.
So it's great income globally because you have cash flow. So you have money coming in every single month that you can then budget for yourself into retirement.
And you know why wealth management people, financial planners, wealth managers don't tell you should buy a rental home that a tenant pays off for you? Because they don't get a fee for it. Mm-hmm. They only get fees if they manage the money for you. The minute you take it away from them and buy a rental home and throw a renter in there, well, it lowers their income. So that's how messed up the system is.
It really is. And, you only have so many ways to make money into retirement. You have cash flowing assets. You have cash flow from your investments. It's not even really cash flow. It's just dividends from your, investments that you've made. Or you can work part-time. And working part-time is not bad. In fact, I can't imagine not working. But, having to work to pay your bills into retirement versus having to work to maybe go on a vacation or be able to, get a massage or do something nice for yourself. There's two different things when you're, older.
Yep, completely. And let's face it, you're busting your butt all these years. You should be in a position to be able to take the time you need and have the money you need to live comfortably the way you want to live.
Yeah. And if you're a young person listening, know that, you just can't rely on Social Security. It's going to be there in some form. I'm not one of these people that believe it's going to go away because I think people need it, but it's not going to be enough to just focus on that and not have anything else. And a 401k might not be enough either. You really need to dig into your 401k. People assume that it's enough. And then when they get into the nitty gritty of it, it's not as much as they think.
Trust me, guys, Danille, I remember you telling me the story when you got your first paycheck after you graduated from college as a teacher, and it was like a lot less. One thing to remember is that money is your money. People forget, mm-hmm. that money they're scooping out of your check for Social Security it's yours. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be there, and it isn't in all cases. And because of that, they're going to continue to print, and they're going to continue to fund, and it's going to continue to inflate. And, you need to be in some kind of assets that move with inflation. And, so that's my takeaway for this. At the very least, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're not looking at your Social Security. But trust me, as you get in your 50s, you start to open that envelope and look at it a little bit differently.